Hello everybody, this is a video on how to remove the battery and alternator out of a 2002 Pontiac Aztek. If you don't have to remove your battery, you can skip the first step. First thing you do is unbolt your battery. They're 8 millimeters. The next thing to do is there's a crossbeam lying right here. You remove it by taking out 2 10s and a 13 in the back, which is right here. This is kind of hard to get to, so in the process you do have to unbolt the one bolt on this, so you might want to unbolt that first. It's just a 10 right here, so you unbolt that, you have easy access to the 13, you remove the crossbeam. This allows the battery to come out after you remove the battery retention bolt right here. It just has a little plastic clip that holds the battery in. That's a 13, I believe. Once that's out, the battery will slide out. On this fuse box, the only thing that you have to do with this during this entire process is there's a small ring holding this right here. You want to remove that, and down here there's another one right here. You want to remove that, and then you want to pull the wire away out of the trough right here, and that'll give it slack, so you can just kind of move this completely out of the way, just like that. The next step is you're going to remove your windshield wipers and the cowling and the motor for the windshield wipers. To do that, there's only 4 bolts holding the windshield wiper motor in place. This is very easy to do. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove your windshield wipers. They are attached on their motor assembly here and here, and since I've already removed it, I can show you right here. So first you'll remove the plastic cap. Just pull it up with some pliers. Don't try and screw it or else you'll damage it. You'll remove a 15 millimeter bolt. And then once you do that, you want to make a mark on to know where the splines are at. So just take a Sharpie and just mark one straight line on your windshield wipers with this. That way when you put them back, you'll have an easy reference to put them back so they are synced up and in line. Now once you do that, you're going to, once the windshield wipers have been removed, the hoses for the fluid are just held in by these little clips. They just pull right out. The windshield wipers will be free. After that, you're going to remove this cowling. There's a piece of rubber that's on the bottom. This in the metal, you just pull it right off. It comes off very easy. These are held on by 9 clips. To get these out, you just take a screwdriver, pop them up and pull them out, or if you have the appropriate tool, they kind of just slide under, pop up this little knob, they pull out. Again, there are 9 of them. Once that's out and free, then you'll have access to drop these. Again, you have your windshield wipers out, you've removed your cowling, and there'll be just 4 bolts. I believe they're 13s. I might be wrong. They could be 10s or 15s. But once you remove those 4, the windshield wiper motor assembly will be free. Before you remove it, you'll have to remove the cruise control box. Just open it up, set it to the side, and there are 2 bolts holding it. Remove that. Once you do that, you'll have access to slide this free out of here. So just 2 bolts, remove it, and then once the windshield wiper motor assembly comes out, you can just pop this back in, so that way you know where everything's at. And then once you replace it, you just again repeat the process in reverse. Take this back out, unbolt it, put the assembly back in. Now that we've removed the cowling and the windshield wiper motor and the battery, we are almost done. As you see, the only parts that were removed for the battery and alternator assembly were this bracket, the windshield wiper motor assembly, all held on only by 4 bolts, and this cowling held on by some clips. I would like to note that the windshield wiper motor assembly has a single plug, which you unplug, and the alternator, which you will be removing, which sits right here, will have also a single plug and the 12-volt out to the battery. One other thing I did, which you don't have to do, but I found helped me personally, is this ground cable. While removing the battery, since I had this down here, I did remove the other side of the ground, which attaches right here, just so that the wireway was free for me to move out of the way. The next step is to remove the serpentine belt. If you don't have a guide, the easiest thing to do is draw a picture of how it routes. Once you do that, the tensioner is down here. I won't be able to show it to you very well, but essentially there is you can use a 3/8 ratchet. Just take the ratchet with no socket on it, the square part, and on the tensioner there'll be a square outline. You place the ratchet in there, and then you pull the ratchet up and forward. That pulls the tensioner out, releases tension, and you can slide the pulley off the top of the alternator. The final step of the alternator removal is removing the alternator. To do this, there are 3 bolts. Here's the bolt where the alternator swivels on. There's a shorter one on the right hand side, and there is a longer one on the left hand side. They are 15s, and you will need a wrench, as a ratchet is too large and there is literally no room. This is still screwed in, and as you see, I came and put my finger behind here. So to get this out, you will need a wrench. This one actually sits in a groove on the alternator right here, so it does not have to be removed. I did, but you should be able to loosen this up quite a bit. Remove this bolt, and then the alternator should come free. Here's a quick view. As you see, it is slotted. So if you have this bolt removed and the swing arm removed, you might be able to pivot it up and then out. But I just took all 3 bolts out. I found it easier. So again, the bolt goes here, one goes here, and one goes here. The plug and the 12 volts out to the battery. The final step, once you have removed those 3 bolts, is very simply, you take the alternator, you pick it up, and you go this way, and it comes right out. Very simple. So the entire process, you only have to remove, if you are not removing the battery, is the windshield wiper assembly, and you have to unbolt this temporarily. Now, if you don't want to do this, there is the option that once you have the windshield wiper motor assembly unbolted, you can just pull it out and have it sitting here. You do have enough clearance, so if this is not going to be a multi-day job and you're able to do it all in one go, you can actually just unbolt it, pull the motor forward, and leave it. It does kind of get in the way, so you might want to unbolt your alternator first, get all that taken care of, and then take out these bolts, pull it forward, and then you should have clearance room to put everything back. And that's it, guys. So essentially, to remove the battery, pull the crossbeam, 1 bolt for the fuse box, pull it forward, use a tensioner pulley to pull off the bracket, loosen this box, pull off the cowling, the windshield wiper motor, or windshield wipers and the windshield wiper motor, and then break the alternator loose, and then just slide it up. This is again on a 2002 Pontiac Aztek. It should work on the other years, but I'm not sure, so your mileage may vary. Thank you. Hey y'all, as a last side note, I would like to add that, as you see, this does, you can just kind of get you a better picture. You can just slide that right on that bracket and set down, so you don't actually have to remove that inside right bolt. You can just loosen it quite a bit and leave it there. Remove this bolt and the back bolt, and then kind of, wiggle your way out. You have to pull it up this way first and then out, but it is possible. Also, as of a note, this left-hand bolt, you are going to want to put it inside the alternator. So basically there's the slot you want to put it in and then set this in place, because you cannot get that bolt in place with the alternator still sitting there, as there's such a tight clearance. So if you just slide the bolt in first and then just kind of set it in, you should be good to go. Now at the end of this video, I'll be putting everything back together, so I'll add in some extra clarification as I put it back together. So as you see, the alternator bolted back in. Once I did that, I plugged in the one plug, the 12-volt output. I then replaced the windshield wiper motor assembly, and as you see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts to get it in place. As I said, you just remove the 2 bolts right here. You physically take off this box, and this box has a little clip on the arm, so you just kind of push it back, and you see this just comes right out, and this just sits in there. So once you put the 2 bolts back in, you can place this back inside. Alrighty, now that the windshield wiper motor is back in, and I've re-put the 2 bolts back here and put this box back in, we're going to put the cowling on. And as you see, the cowling just sits right here like this. And then this weather stripping goes over the edge to hold it. And the cowling is held in place by these little plastic push rivets. And here's one of them. So literally you just put it back in, make sure it's pulled all the way out. You kind of work your way back in the hole like that, and then you just push down on it, and that locks it back in place. You have the cowling button into place. Take your windshield wipers, set them in, and then like I said, the hose just clips in on these little clips like that. Very simple. And then you're going to put your windshield wipers back on with the 15mm bolt. And again, very important, make sure when you take them off, can't see very well, but you'll see that black line. And I have a black line on the spline. I marked it so that way they go back on exactly the way it came off, so they work properly. Once the windshield wipers are back in place, like I said, I followed my marks. You take this rubber gasket and just clips right back in place on the edge, and then you take your plastic caps, you just push down. They just keep the bolt from getting corroded. There we go. So far we have replaced the alternator, put the motor arm assembly back in, put the cowl on with the clips after we bolt to the motor arm assembly with the 2 bolts on each side. Put this back on, put the windshield wipers back on. Next is going to be putting the battery in. We'll move this fuse box. We'll get the wiring back in the little harnesses, put the battery in, and then the crossbar. The last thing is going to be the serpentine belt. I would like to add a side note that when you put this wiring harness back in, you slot it back here behind this little lip it's got. It's going to be kind of a tight fit under here, so you just kind of got to push it under. Or if you want to, you can always, before you bolt all this in place, you can kind of have this under there and be more cognizant than I was. And then this just plugs in with this one plug right here. Goes in there. Got to get it under there a little more out of the way first, and then reclip it. Alright, I got the battery placed. There's the 13mm bolt that holds the battery. And I put the crossbar back in, 2 10s, the 13. And then once we're done, this will sit here, and this 110 bolt will build there. And then that's all that's left besides hooking up the battery and putting on the serpentine belt. Alright, I've got the serpentine belt on. No way I can really show you as I'm by myself. But essentially you just get it on all of them except for the alternator. Put your 3/8 on the hole in the tensioner belt. You pull upwards and then you put the belt on, make sure it's all sitting correctly on all the grooves, on all the things once you're done. If you, I have pretty big arms, so if you have big arms, it's a little tight. Once you have that, I got my battery bolted in, and I'm going to get ready to start it. And we'll see if we got some alternating current going on. All right, now everything's plugged up. I got my torque with my OBD2 adapter on, and let's see what happens. And there we go. So the alternator's working. We'll turn off the car again. And I got a new battery and a new alternator in right now. Okay. About 11 cranking amps. Let's do a little load test. On the AC all the way. AC off. AC on. So I believe we are fixed.